This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, and we have something a little different for you. You've heard a lot of great interviews on my show, but they've all been people that have worked for me back in the 80s and 90s, and people I still work with on shows to this day. But right now we have a new comedy entertainer. He's an impressionist out of Southern Florida, and he was referred to me by my very good friend and an earlier interviewee, Bruce Smirnoff. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Josh Rosen. Wow, Josh. So great to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. How are you doing, buddy?
Thanks so much for having me. Great to talk to you from sunny South Florida.
Well, I'm a little envious. We're in cold and rainy Central California, so sunny Florida sounds pretty good. Now, you've been doing stand-up comedy and doing your impressions, many of which you're very good at. I've heard you for a while now. How did you connect with Bruce Smirnoff, who's kind of acting as your mentor?
Well, you know, it was interesting. A few months ago, this was back in June 2021. I was performing at a bar in Boca Raton, Florida. It was a comedy show, but it was just a small little bar. And I was doing my act, and this guy walked in as I was performing on stage because I was getting a great reaction from the crowd. And it was the first time he had seen me perform ever in South Florida. And I got off stage. He introduced himself, and he was just amazed at what I was doing on stage. And I didn't know who Bruce Smirnoff was at the time. So to me, he could have been anyone. He just looked like a gentleman who was just fascinated with the talent I was displaying on stage. And then, he asked me a few questions, and then he started calling me the following week. And, from there, we started working together. He's been mentoring me and giving me some great advice. And that's how it started. So I guess the lesson there is you never know who's watching your set, even in a small bar.
That's so true. And what a lucky break for you to update the audience. Bruce Smirnoff has been a long-time headliner. He's done television, cruises, corporates. He was a regular at my clubs for a number of years. You can hear all about him on his particular interview. Just go back to my archive of podcasts. But Bruce is a terrific friend and stand-up comic. And for him to pull you aside and say something, he had to have seen some talent. Now, I know that you're a comic impressionist. Did you start off with comedy or impressions when, before you hit the stage? I'm sure you were doing it prior with your family or friends. Was it impressions or comedy that kind of got you going?
Well, I have done impressions for a long time, but when I first did my first open mic, which was in college, I didn't know how to incorporate the impressions into my stand-up act. So I was kind of copying like, George Carlin, who I was a big fan of, or Don Rickles. And I was kind of doing like their type of routine in my own voice. After doing it for a few months, I thought to myself, why don't I just start doing my impressions in my stand-up act? And that's where it started. So it didn't start right away with the impressions, but a few months in, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I started doing.
Oh, I think that's great. And I think what's important for people to know is that when you first go on stage in an open mic, you're just really hoping to get off without bombing too bad. And you want to find some connection with the audience. And I think it's interesting that you started with comedy and then you were able to mix in and, like you said, find your voice with the impressions. Now, when you were doing just stand-up, do you remember any of your early jokes?
Oh God, they were so bad. Like I can't even. I don't even want to discuss them. It was just, looking back at it, it was like I would do a lot of one-liners. It was like a combination of like Rodney Dangerfield type jokes, except not good. And also, and I do a great Rodney impression. Hey, I'll tell you, I get no respect at all, you know. I told my wife for home improvement loans. Give me $1,000 to move out, you know. It was like
that's a good Rodney.
Joke. Yeah, I love doing Rodney.
But your comedy,
it was like Rodney type.
Yeah, your comedy started more basic. And did bringing in the impressions help you, as I said, find your voice or your comedy voice and help you write and perform? Were you getting better as a comic, or did the impressions really make the difference?
I think the impressions just gave me something to focus on, like an identity on stage. But that said, it still took me a long time to figure out how to present the impressions. You know, I would watch my dad told me a lot about Rich Little, and he was like, hey, you know, if you're doing impressions, you need to study Rich Little, because he was, you know, the premier impressionist for so many years. So, you know, I would watch old clips of him just to see how he presented them, and then more modern day impressionists like Frank Caliendo. But it took me a while. It's not until the last year or two where I feel like I've found who I am on stage as an impressionist.
Yeah, but your dad was a genius. I mean, pointing out Rich Little and how he set up his impressions is a great way for a young comic to learn. I mean, all comics enjoy and learned about stand-up by watching somebody else, whether it was Don Rickles or Bill Cosby or other people in more recent decades. You know, you might have seen Jerry Seinfeld or Jay Leno, Ray Romano, and you hear them doing stand-up and you go, hey, that's something I want to do. But Rich Little really, in my generation, was the king of impressions. But what it sounds like is you wanted to be funny, but the impressions gave you an opportunity. And what's great, and I'm sure you already realize this, is that if you do Rodney Dangerfield, guess what? If you're doing his impression, you're free to do his material. So that helps you where you didn't even have to write something. You can emulate Rodney, and the talent is in the voice, and the material, you're welcome to do his, you know, take my wife jokes.
Right. With Rodney, I mean, I'm not going to rewrite jokes in his voice, you know, because his jokes were so brilliant. There's nothing I could top that. But, you know, most of the other impressions I do, you know, I am able to write my own material, like obviously with all the presidents. Obama was probably the first major impression I did, though.
So yeah, and I was saying how Rodney probably gave you a step up to being funny in a character because the material was already written. But I think the real challenge for you as a up and coming comic is being able to write humor in these variety of voices and have it all kind of make sense. For example, if you were, I know that you have a Woody Allen impression. Now, Woody did a lot of stage material, but most people just do Woody being Woody, you know, because he just kind of had a way. How do you present Woody Allen?
You know, I've been doing, you know, Woody Allen and, you know, it's interesting because when I walk into any place, people come up to me without even knowing that I'm an impressionist. And they say to me, you look like Woody Allen when he was 30 years old. And, you know, and that's even before I open my mouth. So I've already got the physical attributes of Woody Allen. And then, you know, I do different things. Like lately I've been doing Woody Allen doing yoga on stage. And, you know, I'll take a fall while doing the downward dog pose and, you know, talk about seeing my analyst because of my injuries sustained while doing the tree pose. And, you know, I love saying the word didactic as Woody Allen. Didactic.
Well, very good. And I think that's great. I think one of the reasons I was so excited about doing this interview is that impressionists are able to share another level of connection with an audience, because it's not only the humor or the type of humor relating to somebody, but you're adding the additional element of a voice that people recognize. Now, I know, for example, you do a Larry David, Now, Larry David's not really a famous comedian or actor, but he's more of a comedy writer. And then, of course, a regular on the Seinfeld show. I mean, they work together on shows that his own show, the Larry David Show. So how do you present somebody that's kind of unique that not everybody knows, like Larry David?
Well, Larry David has, when I do an impression too, there's a lot of physical components of it. So with Larry David, he has a face and like a body language to him that we all can recognize. So I'll just say like, please welcome Larry David. And I'll turn my back and then I'll present myself to the audience with just his face and his body language and the way he walks. And people will start laughing immediately because they can connect with that aspect of him. And then, I do have his voice down too. I'm good. You know what? I don't really want to be here tonight. And then I'll just look at the crowd and go like, no thanks, and turn around.
You bring up an interesting point that, quite frankly, I wasn't prepared for, that a lot of impressionists that have worked for me, and Kevin Pollak was one of the best, is the physicality of it. So obviously, if you have the comedy and the voice, but you can have the manic actions, a lot of people would do Letterman a certain way, or Bogart and stuff. They would act it out. And so, of course, that's no good to my podcast audience, but we can envision what Larry David might be like, or Woody Allen and doing Downward Dog. I mean, it's just hilarious. But then you're able to kind of bring all that together. So congratulations, because that is not only difficult, but adds an additional level to the entertainment, because a lot of stand-ups, they're just doing stand-up comedy. You're adding a voice, and then you're also acting, which a lot of comics will learn with time, but you're doing it initially as part of your set. I think that is something that will give you an edge in the comedy world, and the fact that you have Bruce working with you, I bet you're having a lot of fun with that.
Oh, yeah, and we're also starting to incorporate music into my act. So when I introduce each character, like when I do Larry David, I will have the Curb Your Enthusiasm music playing.
Oh, see, that just adds a whole nother level of identification with the audience. Oh, that's brilliant. Great idea.
Yeah.
What was the first impression you felt you got down that, you really felt proud of?
Well, I was a sports fan growing up, and the voice of the NBA was Marv Albert.
Oh, yeah.
Familiar with him. So I had his voice down so spot on from doing it as a kid, too, that once I got on stage, I felt so confident. Yes, it counts. And the foul by Barack Obama put on Michelle Obama.
Oh, I used to love Marv Albert, and remember his bloopers tapes? We used to show those before the shows at the comedy clubs. And you're right, his voice is so distinctive. When he would call a baseball game or something, you always knew what was going on, because there was kind of that built-in energy and excitement in his voice.
Exactly. So I used to do him on stage. I don't do it as much now, because he recently retired, but I still do incorporate it sometimes. But that, yes, it counts. And the foul put on the baked potato.
I was going to say, I mean, you could almost put him in any situation, like Marv Albert in a grocery store, right?
He picks the avocado. It's ripe. The cashier touches the avocado. Now it's spoiled. The foul put on the avocado.
Oh, that's funny. I love how what's interesting about interviewing you, Josh, and I've interviewed so many professional comics, that when you're an impressionist, it really opens up the opportunity to improv with an audience. I mean, you really could say, hey, somebody shout out a location or a situation, and, you might say, Matthew McConaughey at a hairdresser.
You know what they say about them barbers, right? I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, they do.
See, that's exactly what I mean. So that's got to really be advantageous to you building a set and connecting with the audience. I don't want to put you on the spot, but with you and Bruce working together, are you doing 15-minute sets? You up to half an hour? How much time are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I can do up to a half hour, but we're really working on having a really strong 15.
Yeah, I agree with whatever advice Bruce is giving you as a producer, because that's my role, Josh. I'm a comedy producer. When I was looking at talent, I've seen people try to stretch, and I would tell them to do a 5-minute set, and they would have 3 minutes and try to stretch it. It just doesn't work. And what's interesting is if you can get 15 minutes rock solid, I know as a producer that if I say I want 10 minutes, I know you can do it. If I want 15, I know you're going to rock it. But if I need 18 or 20, I know that you can slow it down or add a little improv and stretch it without taking away from the quality of the set. And so and anybody interested in comedy that's listening, it's so important to lock in your first 5 minutes and then your first 10. I mean, you kind of work in 5-minute increments. And at some point, you're going to get there. I had a professional comedy writer tell me that if you write, 1 hour a day and get 1 minute of material a week, guess what? At the end of the year, you've got a 60-minute set.
Right.
And it just takes that devotion and that commitment to writing. And what's, I think, great, Josh, with your opportunity is that you can use the impressions that you feel are the strongest and bring them out with your writing. So it gives you quite a leg up in the industry. Now, what type of theaters or shows? You mentioned that you met Bruce doing like an open mic at a bar. Are there some comedy clubs that you're getting some stage time or theaters?
Yeah, there is, quite a bit of shows starting to happen in South Florida now. And we also have 3 improvs here. A new one just opened in Fort Lauderdale. So I've had some great opportunities recently. I was introduced to Jeff Ross from Bruce, and I was able to do a guest set when he was down here, which was a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah. No, very talented comic. And it's great to hear that more clubs are opening in Florida. We're still a little under wraps here in California, but hopefully things will, by the time this comes out, are a little bit back to normal. I do want to mention to the audience that Josh is a very prolific entertainer on Clubhouse. If you haven't had a chance, check out Clubhouse and just search Josh Rosen. But also, he can be reached you can find all his material through Instagram at joshrosenimpressions.com is the website. And on Instagram, just search Josh Rosen Impressions, and you can get access to videos of some of this so you can see the acting that he's doing with these impressions. All very impressive, Josh. What are your goals? Where would you like to take your career in comedy?
Well, I'd like to continue working on, my one-man stand-up set. It's like a one-man show. So I'm starting to practice with the musical themes. So I want to keep getting better with that. And, working with Bruce has been a blessing. And just keep getting better every day at what I do. Keep expanding the amount of material I have with the impressions. And I'd love to get on national television, whether that's a late night show, a Saturday Night Live, or any other, type of program where I can display the impressions.
Right. I think the challenge, it's a good and bad time to be in comedy. It is a little more challenging to get on a sitcom or a talk show, but I can guarantee you, Josh, that if you keep working on your impressions and you're acting out of those impressions, that opportunities will be presented to you. But what's nice about today's society is that you can actually create your own channel on YouTube or do a presentation like you're kind of doing on Clubhouse, only do it on video. And if you can get it out there, and hopefully this podcast will help, you can build an audience on your own that can lead to financial success and notoriety that would open up even more doors in show business. So I'm very excited about your future.
Thank you. Yeah. And, I also worked with Michael Rappaport recently.
Oh, great guy.
Yeah, he actually, and this was an example of how I, have been using social media. I would reply to him as Donald Trump a lot of times when he would do his rants, and he started to notice it and follow me back. And I also do an impression of him as well, which he's seen. So we were messaging each other, and when he was down here in Miami, I was able to meet him. We did a video together, and he also put me on his show to do a guest spot. So that just shows the power of, social media.
Right. It's opening up opportunities, opening up doors. And as you and Bruce are working on, if you can get that tight 15, that's more than enough to present to a TV show or to a producer. Obviously, you're going to want to keep growing your impressions and your material so that, instead of 3 minutes of Woody Allen, you maybe have 5, or 2 minutes of Larry David, you can do 4. And by just building on each character, a minute here and a minute there, I know to the audience it may not sound like a lot of time, but when you put it all together, you get a bit. And then once you have a bit, you get an act. And once you have an act, nobody can stop you. So that's great. By the way, I know that this might be a little off-putting, but I put in a call. I thought you have such a connection with Trump. You've been doing Trump on Clubhouse. I thought we'd give him a call and see what he thinks about it. Is that okay with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can get a hold of him.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I've already got the phone number here. Hold on. Yeah. Mr. Trump, this is Scott Edwards. I'm doing a podcast with Josh Rosen. He does a lot of impressions of you. Have you heard them?
Oh, Scott, first of all, it's great to speak to you. Josh Rosen, he's a great guy, a little guy. He actually lives very close to me near Mar-a-Lago, and I've heard his impression. It's very good, actually. A lot better than Alec Baldwin's, okay? A lot less nasty, too, believe me, okay? There's a tremendous impression.
Well,
some would say the best, actually.
Well, I Mr. Trump, you taking the time to be with us on the podcast. What would you say is your goal looking forward? Can we share that with the audience?
Well, my goal is to probably run again and probably win again, okay? And not just on the golf course. I'm probably the greatest golfer in the history of golfers, actually. So we're doing great things. We're doing great things on the golf course, and that's really it, okay? I'm going to run again, and I'm going to win again, especially on the golf course.
Well, we know how precious your time is, Mr. Trump. Thank you for joining us, and I'll let Josh know, he'll be hearing this podcast, how happy you are with his impression.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And by the way, your ratings are going to be so much higher now that I'm on your show.
Well, you are the greatest. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
God bless.
Wow. Josh, the president is well aware of what you're doing and is excited to have you doing his impression. It sounds like as he goes forward with his career, it might benefit your career.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing Trump. I'm glad to hear that he knows who I am, and I've been doing Trump for the last 4 or 5 years. And when he lost the 2020 election, I thought to myself, "Gee, I don't know if I can still do him." But he's actually as relevant as ever. So
yeah, I have a feeling he's not going anywhere. But I don't want to pick political sides, but I feel that if we put in a call to Trump, it would only make sense to try to reach Biden. Do you mind if I try calling him?
Oh, sure. He might be asleep, but we can try.
Well, let me give it a shot.
Okay.
Yeah, hello, President Biden. This is Scott Edwards. I'm doing a podcast, and we just got through talking with ex-President Trump. I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that.
Hey, Scott. I'm not really sure what's going on right now because I just woke up for a 23-hour nap. Come on, man. Give me a break. Donald who? Donald Duck?
Well, President Biden, I'm sorry to wake you from your nap, but we just wanted to give you equal time and get a chance. Before we let you go, is there some hope for America?
Well, we just injected 300 trillion shots in arms in the last 3 weeks. So we're getting back on track. And we just got to build back fatter.
Better.
Better.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your valuable time, Mr. President, and hopefully we'll make America great again. Oh, wait a minute, that's Trump. Sorry.
Hey, come on, man! Don't be saying that, dog face pony soldier.
All right. Well, Josh, Biden doesn't seem quite as enthusiastic.
Well, he doesn't, but he just he hasn't gotten to know me yet, and I'll be able to hopefully wake him up.
Well, I think it's great that we had this opportunity to speak with two such powerful men. It wouldn't happen without the connection with you, Josh. Now, I know you've been doing impressions for a while, and we talked about some of your early ones. And obviously, Trump and Bernie and Biden have given you an opportunity to stay relevant with today's politics. Is there an impression or a bit that you are particularly enjoy doing you'd like to share?
Well, everyone that I imitate, I do genuinely find the person interesting, because when I have to work on an impression, it takes a lot of time to really master it. So I have to at least be interested in the person. And I'm actually doing Kamala Harris now as well.
No.
It's true. And what I've noticed with Kamala Harris is it's her laugh. I'm not sure if you've ever heard her laughing, but I got the laugh down, and that's all you need.
Is she one of the more physical where you have to act it out, or can we get this from the audio?
I will give you the audio of her laughing.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Kamala Harris and her unique laugh.
We did it, Joe.
I hate to pass judgment, but that's not my favorite sound. But it's so funny because she has used that laugh to try to get her out of problems. Who knows where the world will be by the time this launches, but at this particular date, there has not been a very good run by Biden and Harris. And what's sad is that Harris has been given some serious jobs, and she just pulls off that laugh and gets nothing done. But hey, that sounded like a political comment, so I apologize. For all you Kamala Harris lovers, we apologize and hope you enjoyed her laughter.
And I got to say, when I do the Kamala laugh, too, I started, she dances a lot, too. So when I do the laugh, I'll say the line, I'll say it one sentence in her voice, and then I'll say, "Let's boogie," and then I start dancing.
Yeah, and I bet the audience gets a kick out of that because it's not usual that you see what's supposed to be a serious politician that has some control over our life being so kind of frivolous and goofy to laugh and dance off everything. But let's take it back to more entertaining stuff. You had a great Rodney Dangerfield. Before we end this, was there anything you'd like to share that would be of interest to the audience or that's fun for you?
I've just been doing a lot more physical in my comedy too, which is a lot of fun. I used to focus so much on getting the voices down. So to be able to do all the characters with physical movements and faces and stuff is just a lot of fun for me. Like I love when I do Joe Biden, I do his face and the way he moves and his look, and it's like people start laughing without me even saying anything, and I get a real kick out of that.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on something really important, and I alluded to it earlier, that Rich Little and a lot of other famous impressionists were able to give a little bit of that look or facial expression or mimic their arm actions that really helps sell the impression and adds to the comedy. And I just want to say, and I haven't been shy about it, Josh, I'm really excited about your future. I think that working with Bruce and taking the path you're taking is going to take you somewhere, and it's just an honor to have you on my podcast in the early stages of your career. For my listening audience, let me remind you, this is the first interview of a comic that's really just getting started, where most of mine were with people that started with me back in the 80s and 90s, but now have a full life of comedy behind them or still in their future. But this has been really exciting, Josh, and we wish you all the best. I do want to say from a producer's point of view that you're doing the right thing, focusing on the physical mimicking of the voices you do. But I want to encourage you, and I know Bruce is doing the same thing, my good friend Bruce Smirnoff, write. And what you're going to want to do is add a few minutes to each character. And when you're done, you're going to have that 15-minute, and I think soon you'll have that half-hour set that can take you anywhere you want to go. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Well, it's just fun to hear the voices and fun to talk to a new young comic. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you, go to Instagram and search Josh Rosen Impressions, or go to the website joshrosenimpressions.com and do a little research. If you're in the Southern Florida area, keep an eye out for his name. You'll see it on marquees all over the state. And we're just excited at your future and your career, Josh. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Josh Rosen out of Southern Florida. We want to thank you for joining us on today's podcast. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll have another great show. Thanks for listening. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.